Soul Society, aristocratic district. Mansions, high-class restaurants, and exclusive establishments lined the roads leading into the eastern 6th Ward, the aristocratic district. No matter how many times I come here, I never get used to walking around the aristocratic district.
You've been here before?
Omaida invited me and Renji out to eat and stuff. I couldn't afford to eat at the restaurants here on my salary.
Not even with a lieutenant's salary. Is it really that ridiculous?
Yeah, well, I use most of my paycheck to get gasoline and guitar stuff from the world of the living, so when it comes to money, I'm a little... Omaida's a lieutenant like me, but he supposedly got his own jewel mine. Seriously, when it rains, it pours. Really only applies to money. Hisagi suddenly stopped and turned toward a dazzling structure that stood out from the rest of the buildings.
Is something the matter, Hisagi?
No, but I think that might be the Tsunayashiro estate. The extravagant estate reached higher than the surrounding structures. With few exceptions, the Soul Society wasn't inclined toward building vertically and looked more like Japan in the Heian era. But the design of the Tsunayashiro estate made it seem as though it were looking down at the other mansions, as if asserting that the Tsunayashiros were the rulers of the district, with utter disregard for Squad 6 and the Kuchiki family who served as the district's wardens.
Oh, that's the residence of the head of the 4 great noble clans. It's directly opposite to the Kuchiki Manor, isn't it? Oh, I can see it now. That's the Central Clinic. I haven't been here since we celebrated my brother taking office. Isn't it even more extravagant than the Squad 1 barracks?
It's kind of like... The atmosphere is similar, even though it looks completely different on the outside.
Huh? What are you talking about?
It's like Squad 12's Department of Research and Development. Squad 12, Department of Research and Development.
I'm hungry! I'm hungry! Hungry! Nico, I want a snack. Share yours with me. I want a Casella cake. Ones with tons of sugar on top.
You already had a snack yesterday, sis.
Nuh-uh. I get to have a snack every day. And I get New Year's money every year.
No, if you get New Year's money this year, you don't get any next year.
Well, you could give out New Year's money every year.
Actually, why would the younger sister give her older sister New Year's money after all? Especially at their age. Just when I thought little Miss Kusajishi wouldn't be coming here anymore, we seem to have been given her as a replacement.
Is this place cursed?
Rin stretched his hand into seemingly empty space, and from a small hole that opened for him, pulled out a pastry.
Have you begun hiding snacks in the pseudo-subspace?
The actual Squad 9 lieutenant sent out an interview request to the captain again. He got rejected pretty quick.
Why don't you talk to him? You're the lieutenant.
It's not like I'd be able to answer his questions.
Huh? We've got some kind of weird activity here.
Rin pointed at the abnormality on the monitor. Akon leaned in and observed the activity for a while.
Yeah, you can ignore that one.
We can? But it looks like strange reishi, and is heading straight for the aristocratic district without using a gate.
It's fine. That reishi pattern has been cleared. The 4 great noble clans sent us a direct non-interference notification, so the alarm won't sound either. Of course, the captain is probably monitoring it himself, since he never really complies with non-interference notifications. The spiritual pressure looks like it's gone down a lot compared to what we observed in the aristocratic district a few hours ago. I wonder what happened.
Central Clinic, waiting room. Hisagi and Hanataro were sitting in the waiting room. Seinosuke was presently out, but was expected to return shortly, so they were waiting. The clinic was taking a day off from general examinations, and they weren't accepting anything except emergencies. But when Hanataro had given his name at the front desk, they had been led politely to the waiting room.
This is amazing! The furniture and everything look exactly like an aristocrat's estate. Is this really a waiting room for sick people?
I think this is the bare minimum they could get away with. My brother never really liked wasteful decoration, so I think that the aristocrats must have requested it.
So they won't even wait for examinations unless the room's extravagant? It must be hard dealing with the nobility's vanity.
But Captain Kuchiki doesn't decorate much.
People say that, but he wears that scarf around his neck, doesn't he? Apparently you could build about 10 mansions with what that thing's worth.
10 of them?
I didn't know at first either. but when I was doing a feature on old well-known shops, I happened to hear about it. Did you know one of those hair ornaments he wears could buy several motorcycles?
Huh? What's wrong, Mr. Hisagi?
I just felt some strange spiritual pressure.
The courtyard outside the waiting room he had been glaring at suddenly opened up like the maw of a beast, a crevice like a hollow's garganta.
What? A hollow attack? But we're inside the Shakunamaku soul shield membrane!
Hisagi stood up in shock, but he realized he didn't have his zanpakuto at his hip. Now that the wartime exceptions were no longer in effect, there were several places where wearing a sword was prohibited, and inside the clinic was one of them. Hisagi was planning to run to the front desk and retrieve his zanpakuto, but he stopped when he saw a child emerge from the schism. They wore clothing similar to a shihakusho, and bore wounds all over their body.
This is terrible. We need to help quickly.
Hanataro ran into the courtyard. The child was young, with a gashed shoulder, several holes bored into their abdomen, and one arm twisted in entirely the wrong direction. The child wasn't so much on the verge of death as on the verge of being mistaken for an actual corpse, had they not been standing and walking. Hanataro immediately held his hands over the child's wounds and used Kaido. The child dropped to their knees and their face contorted in pain.
It'll be fine. Your wounds will close up soon. Can you hear me?
You can't help me. I can't live anymore. I wasn't able to fulfill Lord Tokinada's commands. There's no value to my life anymore. Please let me die.
You're just confused. It'll be okay. Please hold yourself together.
What? Did they say Lord Tokinada?
The spiritual pressure is continuously changing. I can't close the wounds with just my Kaido. Hisagi, please call the clinic staff immediately. We need to carry the child to an emergency treatment room.
Okay.
But as Hisagi turned, he realized a man was already standing right there.
Huh? Do you work here? This child is wounded.
Before Hisagi could finish speaking, the man walked over to the child and placed hands on the wounds alongside Hanataro's.
You've become better at Kaido, but this patient appears to be unique. Someone at your level still can't heal them.
Huh? Seinosuke?
What?
Seinosuke didn't pay their surprise any mind as he skillfully transformed the nature of his Kaido's spiritual pressure and continued with the treatment. The bleeding stopped and the wounds began to close before their eyes.
He's nothing like Hanataro. Maybe he's better than Unohana.
Oh, Mr. Yamada, I'm done for. Please don't heal me.
Not a chance. Forcing life on patients who want to die is my hobby. I won't let you die so easily, so just get used to it. Prepare yourself for the embarrassment of having lived.
I can't show my face to Lord Tokinada. Just let me rot here like this.
No. You're one of Tokinada Tsunayashiro's possessions, aren't you? I don't suppose that he will forgive you if you go about dying on your own.
As Seinosuke chuckled, the child healed and stood up, then slowly began walking.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yamada. I was just about to do something unbelievably disloyal to Lord Tokinada.
The child's despondency made Hisagi realize that they had been in torment earlier not because of the pain from their wounds, but because they had been anguished at not being able to show devotion to Tokinada.
Did they even feel the pain in the first place?
I've patched you up for the time being, but you require full medical treatment. I apologize since you came to see me, but may I have one more day, Lieutenant Shuhei Hisagi?
Yeah. Hey, how'd that kid get hurt so bad? What kind of relationship have they got with Tokinada Tsunayashiro?
Are you asking about me? I'm Lord Tokinada's servant.
His servant? But you...
Sorry, but as a doctor, I can't divulge a patient's personal affairs.
Wait a second. There's a ton of things I want to ask officially as the Squad 9 lieutenant, so...
He reached towards Seinosuke's shoulder to stop the man, and Hisagi's world turned upside down. By the time that registered, he was looking up at the sky. Somehow, the child had grabbed his hand and gently thrown him down.
Oh, so sorry. I thought Mr. Yamada was in danger. But if this showed you that I, Hikone Ubuginu, have the power to fight for Lord Tokinada, then I'm happy. Yes.
Hey, wait a sec. What did that kid just do to me? This kid is different from anything I've ever come up against.
This feeling. It kind of reminds me of when my spirit energy was being manipulated by Ayasagawa's Zanpakuto.
This is the domain of the aristocracy. Without the wartime exception in place, the logic of the 13 court guard squads doesn't apply. You should assume common practices that are normally praised as good sense won't be allowed here. I'll say it again, Hanataro. You should take a break from the squads for a while. If you don't want to become more involved in these things than you already are, that is.
Hey! I don't understand what's going on here at all. But is Tokinada really so valuable that you'd let him use you until you got hurt like this?
Yes! Lord Tokinada's a wonderful person. A life like mine can't even compare in value to his. And Lord Tokinada said that he'd even make someone like me into the king. I have to spend the rest of my life repaying him for that with my gratitude.
Into the king?
Now did Tokinada Tsunayashiro say you could tell others about that?
Huh? I didn't say anything. Please forget about that. Thank you for your kindness. Sorry, your name was?
Right. I'm Shuhei Hisagi. He's Yamada. Hanataro Yamada.
I see. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Hisagi and Mr. Hanataro. Please somehow forget about me. But I won't forget your kindness. When I become king someday, I'll be sure to repay you.
Seinosuke led the child back toward the treatment room.
I don't get what's going on. What's happening?
My brother's first aid is amazing, but I can't believe anyone with wounds like that could walk immediately. That was almost like Captain Zaraki or Ichigo.
Seinosuke had Hikone lie down and sleep on the bed in the emergency treatment room. Hikone's nerves were a wreck.
Good grief. Looks like Hikone was terribly hurt by the hollows. But I suppose this was within the calculations. Well, regardless, I won't let Hikone die, even if this child's life has not a single hope.
Hueco Mundo. Several thousand Skull soldiers were collapsed on their sides, and Rudbornn had been so horrendously slashed that he was on the verge of death. Loli and Manoli were receiving treatment for identical wounds, and large beast-like hollows that had been pulled into the fight were now collapsed on the ground as well.
Looks like they got beat in the most ostentatious way.
I've reattached your blood vessels and nerves. Now please rest until you recover your spiritual pressure.
I understand. However, I am full of regret. I cannot believe I have only troubled Lady Harribel and the others, and exposed myself in such a shameful manner.
Ha! You're so pitiful, Rudbornn. You let yourself get done in by surviving Quincy's and got yourself beat up by a weird Soul Reaper brat who came traipsing by.
I cannot deny that, even if I wish to.
Well, in the end, Lady Harribel drove them off, didn't she? Seriously, do the Soul Reapers think so little of Hueco Mundo that they consider this a tourist spot or something?
I didn't do it alone. If Grimmjow and Nelliel and even those Quincy's hadn't been here to help, there was a chance we could have all been decimated. We might have been lucky the Soul Reaper ran away.
Huh? What are you saying, Lady Harribel? Even if that was a Soul Reaper, there was only one of them. Are you saying that kid was a monster like that flame-wielding old man?
The Soul Reaper's physical strength and spiritual pressure were definitely on the same level as a Soul Reaper captain. And physical ability alone, they might compare to the ice guy I fought.
So they went out of their way to send a captain here?
No, that Soul Reaper didn't have enough experience to be a captain. That's exactly why we were able to find an opening. But I can't help but be concerned about that Zanpakuto.
What kind of Zanpakuto was it?
The Soul Reaper didn't open the Garganta. The Zanpakuto did.
A slight distance from Harribel, Nelliel sat with Grimmjow, whose arm had been severely gashed.
Are you sure you're okay not getting healed by Roca?
Huh? This thing's just a flesh wound. I've gotten soft. I lost out on finishing off that Reaper with my resurrection.
Yes, who could have known that Zanpakuto would move on its own when it sensed the child was in danger? I clearly saw it open a Garganta and drop the kid into it.
I don't get it. What kind of Soul Reaper Zanpakuto moves on its own and uses a Garganta?
The next time that kid comes here, I'm not so sure things will go the same way.
Yeah, the kid'll get stronger with every battle. I don't mind that. but it was a mistake not to kill them for you guys. I don't want to say this, but that kid's the same as Kurosaki. Just when you think they're about to die, they're reborn even stronger.
Well, other than that, they don't seem very similar.
Somewhere in the world of the living, in a small country, in the decayed stone remnants of some sort of shrine, 2 Quincy's and a corpse were laying low.
If we were just going to end up doing a runner, wouldn't it have been easier to run from the start? Hey, Lil, why'd you get involved in the confusion and go out of your way to attack that Soul Reaper?
I wanted to check something. You noticed it too, didn't you?
Yeah, I tried to spurt some blood at that kid, but the zombification didn't work. What's up with that? Was that Soul Reaper as strong as a captain?
That's not the only thing I noticed. That Reaper didn't just have an Arankar's Iedo. They were using Quincy Blood Vena as well.
No way! Really? That's so unfair. Is it because of that sun pervert?
Possibly. He might have filled with their bodies. But the real issue is what that Reaper was after.
That kid was talking about becoming the Hollow's king or something. Maybe somebody's hatching a rebellion like that Aizen guy?
Maybe our wishes have been answered and the Soul Reapers are slaughtering each other.
Maybe we could rescue Candy and Many while they're in chaos.
Several days later, Rokangai. As Kugo Ginjo was ambling around the Rokangai, a strange crowd caught his attention.
What's the deal with that?
Several men in the crowd were making a commotion and seemed to be desperately appealing to the onlookers. Ginjo approached a resident he occasionally talked to.
Hey, what happened here?
You got me. But the new dead arriving in the Rokangai lately have been making a commotion about how God told them this was exactly how things would be, and that a new world will be starting soon.
Are they religious or something?
One kind of trouble caused by new residents stemmed from their confusion between their observed religion and the reality of the world after death. Some newly dead cult members would claim, "I should have gone to heaven. This impoverished place has to be a world created by demons," and riot. So it was the role of the original inhabitants to soothe them.
Well, they're different from the usual ones. They always say, "This is exactly what the founders said it would be like," and already have a firm grasp on the Rokangai and the Seirete. But they still end up starting a commotion by spouting gibberish about how a new king will arrive in the world or some such nonsense.
Oh, now that's got my interest. Maybe a Soul Reaper who had been dispatched to the world of the living let something leak to a spiritually attuned religious figure who then spread it as a doctrine.
Ginjo decided to head over to the group in order to kill some time. As he neared, a man in the group noticed his clothes.
Hey, young man! Based on your clothes, you must have come here recently, right? So you probably know all about our faith too, right?
Sorry, but I'm not interested in being recruited.
It's been on TV commercials for the past few months. You've got to know about it. It's called Execution.
What did you say? What's going on here? I didn't think Yukio, Ririko, or Jackie would spread that kind of information, but I guess I can't look into it in the state I'm in right now. Not like I have anything better to do. I guess I could play detective for a while. Sorry, I died before that, but I'm kind of intrigued. Could you tell me a little bit more about your founder?
The Department of Research and Development.
The Fullbringers. Now that we've exhausted our research on Soul Reapers, Quincy's, and Arankars, they are our opportunity for trailblazing new technology. I am convinced of that. I think this is a chance to return to the foundations of the Department of Research and Development. Our targets are 3 Fullbringers we have confirmed are hiding within the Rokangai. Normally, one subject would do. However, there are great discrepancies between the abilities of individual Fullbringers. Just as our Zanpakuto are different, and just as the Shrifts, a portion of the Quincy's use, were different.
Captain, one of those 3 Fullbringers is considered to be a criminal, and the other 2 took on Ichigo Kurosaki and Captain Kuchiki. The head captain has released a directive that we are only to observe—
Do the crimes of our research subjects relate to our analysis? Actually, if they obediently offer their bodies to us for research, I will go to the Central 46 myself and lovingly make an appeal for their pardon.
Won't this cause a dispute between us, Squad 1, and the Rukongai?
It is not as though we are going to kill them. We're just doing a little dissection and analysis, and asking for their cooperation with a few incidental experiments. No more than the total number of stars in existence. If they already feel remorse, they should offer their bodies to us. Of course, once the experiments are complete, I could promise to restore their bodies to perfect condition.
What's gotten into the director lately? Isn't he being even more aggressive than usual about research?
It's because Nemu isn't here. The captain has his own way of burying his grief.
All I can do is pity the Fullbringers he's dragging into this.
But Captain, I heard that their abilities are equal to a lower level captain's. I don't think anyone below a captain could capture them. Are you doing it yourself?
Now, Akon, scientists should never voice uncouth opinions. It's almost as though you are assuming there will be a fight. Although experiments are a mass of uncertain elements, one makes provisions for everything. I have made my preparations exactly for that reason.
Mayuri pressed a button that he had pulled from somewhere, and one of the walls opened up. A line of countless cylindrical water tanks filled with very clear scarlet liquid rose up. Each column held a suspended humanoid form.
This is an excellent opportunity. For our first experiment, let's examine them carefully and determine the usefulness of Quincy's against Fullbringers.
Aristocratic District, Tsunayashiro household. Tokinada, who had been preparing for a meeting, picked up on the turbulent atmosphere that flowed through his chambers.
Oh, sorry, can you move? I have an important meeting starting soon.
Deciding that a surprise attack was impossible, the sliding door opened without a sound and countless assassins appeared on the grounds. They were from the same group as the assassins the other day.
8 of you at about the level of a seated officer. Although, as I say that... Oh my! Who would have thought that you would come for me when Hikone was hospitalized? What terrible timing!
Tokinada put his hand on the sword at his hip. He had long ago ceased to be a Soul Reaper, and so his Zanpakuto had been confiscated. But just as the Issei household had their Hakyokan, the Tsunayashiro family had a sword passed down through the generations as well. Tokinada had secretly inherited it. Or, to be more accurate, he had stolen it before he had even attained his new position.
And it seems you have quite underestimated me.
Although the assassins were leaping around him using Hakuda to keep him from pulling out his sword, Tokinada invoked his Zanpakuto.
Offer Kuten Kyokoku.
Seirite, the main street. Since Seinosuke wouldn't have another opening for a while, Hisagi decided to temporarily postpone his coverage of the aristocratic district and head for his next interview. After the incident at the clinic, Hisagi had looked into Hikone, but hadn't found anything. He had even asked Kyoraku, but the head captain knew nothing about Tokinada's private army.
I didn't feel any hostility or maliciousness when that kid threw me over. They weren't being gentle or soft on me. I think they still don't get the difference between good or evil.
What's up, Shuhei? You headed somewhere?
Yes, I'm going to the world of the living to cover something for the Seirite Bulletin.
Huh. Is it back in print already?
Well, there's still a few months before it hits the stands. But the first new issue will feature a look back on the war. I'm heading to Urahara's to interview him. If it goes well, I might even be able to ask Kurosaki about stuff.
All the way to Kisuke's, huh? That's tough. That guy never says anything direct in an interview.
Huh? But... now that you mention it...
Wonder why you didn't realize that earlier. Even a baby in its mother's womb would know that. Well, if you're headed for Kisuke's, you'll probably see Hiyori. If you do, make sure to tease her for me.
I'm the one so hit, though. Cut me some slack. I have to go to the aristocratic district when I get back and gather info on places that are gonna be a pain.
The aristocratic district? What? No one's going to be interested in a feature on the Omaida's bougie lifestyle while we're in the chaos of reconstruction.
I don't think that would be interesting, no matter what the timing is, to be honest.
After a few more bantering exchanges, Hisagi left and headed to the Senkaimon. Hirako watched Hisagi leave before turning to look toward the aristocratic district.
Come to think of it, Yoruichi's been saying there are a lot of fishy things going on there. Hopefully this won't lead to any trouble, although it probably will.
The Seirete, an undisclosed location. Deep underground lay a certain establishment not recorded on any formal map. It was a sacred place, where in ancient times the 5 great noble clans had discussed the objectives of the Seirete and other important matters. It was a location second in importance to the Ryokyu. Tokinada Tsunayashiro sat on one side of the pentagonal table. Byakuya Kuchiki and Yoruichi Shihoin each sat as far from him as the table allowed. The 4th house had no representative present, as a law passed by the Central 46 prevented all clan heads from gathering in the same location as a precaution against losing all heads at once to an enemy attack or a disaster. The regulation was issued after the Quincy attack 1,000 years ago.
This is my first time in this chamber. It does not seem to have been used lately, but at least it was thoroughly cleaned.
I heard it was used in previous generations to hold an assumption for office. After the banishment of the Shiba household, they had no reason to use it.
Yes, that is precisely why I had this room refreshed. Continuing the customs of the past is just one of our jobs as the aristocracy.
And yet this place reeks of blood. Did you snatch a kid and eat them before we got here or something?
I found myself surrounded by outlaws. I simply failed to avoid some of their blood.
This is the man we suspect of killing the people in his own birth house. We can't let our guards down.
This is my first chance to meet the former head of the Shihoin house. I see now that there is a reason you are called the Shihoin princess. You are lovely and blessed with both charm and dignity.
Blatant flattery annoys me. You probably actually think I'm a lowly shrew, right?
If you are so self-aware, perhaps as a former head of house, you should abstain from rash actions?
So why did you go out of your way to contact us too? Since you specified me rather than the current head of house, Yushiro, you didn't just bring us out here to see our faces, did you?
Yes, of course. I have concerns about the future of the Soul Society. We've been attacked by Quincy's and committed a blunder that allowed them to invade even the Ryokyu. Of course, as mere assistants, I don't believe that the 13 court guard squads or you are to blame. If anything, Ryo and Squad Zero are the ones to be blamed, since they were unable to keep up with the ever-flowing changes of the world, locked away as they were in their own bubble. Don't you agree? Had the Ryo conducted himself better, there might have been fewer injuries in the 13 court guard squads.
Please leave it at that. It is not befitting for a head of the 4 great noble clans to so frivolously renounce the Ryo.
You speak of behavior befitting the aristocracy? Why, of course! Perhaps I should emulate you and move up my own sister's execution date after being fed false information by traitors and dance to their tune. Your wife Hisano was also foolish. Look what believing in a noble and leaving her sister's fate in his hands led to. Or perhaps her view of the world was clouded as a result of being tainted by gluttonous, genteel nobles.
Tokinada, you...
It is true that I attempted to have Rukia executed. I do not mind being disparaged for that.
Oh?
However, Hisana was not at all at fault. All the blame lies with me.
Please don't look so fearsome. It's not as though I came here to pick a fight. I apologize for provoking you. I'm relieved to find that you are a man who can separate your emotions from your governance.
Hurry up and get to the point, or I might punch you before he does.
I wish to discuss the revival of the 5 great noble clans. In other words, I am considering proposing the restoration of the Shiba house. Certainly, Isshin Shiba's defection could be considered the action of a traitor, but as a result, Isshin's son, Ichigo Kurosaki, who, yes, is only part of a branch family but is still of Shiba descent, defeated the Quincy's king. Aren't those achievements more than enough to rinse the tarnish off their name?
I agree in regard to Ichigo Kurosaki's achievements. However, Ichigo Kurosaki would not accept the standing of a noble.
That's exactly it. That guy wouldn't see position and honor as rewards. If anything, he'd consider them a nuisance. If it was for the sake of the entire Shiba household, he might accept. But Kukaku and Ganju aren't thinking of returning to the nobility right now.
I see. Certainly, Ichigo Kurosaki does seem to be that type. In that case, why don't we register his sisters as the heads of house? There's no need for them to do any actual work, it can be a name only.
I wouldn't have expected you to look all the way into Ichigo's family, but I can't see that happening either. Why are you so interested in reinstating the Shiba household?
Because I want to honor justice. I don't mind using the Tsunayashiro family clout to force things to go the way that I want, but that would cause problems with the Soul Society's inhabitants. They might think me a despot. And that is exactly why I want it to be known that I swayed the Seirete through fair means. I want to get the 5 families on my side. And if I can obtain the formal consent of Reo, I want to make the 5 great noble clans as a body equal in rank to the king. Then the clans would surpass the Central 46 in power as a decision-making body. In fact, I suspect the reason the Central 46 crushed the Shiba house was to make sure something like this never happened. Haven't you ever had your doubts? Why did the Shiba family get such a cold reception from the 5 great noble clans? Officially, the Shiba set up in Rukongai in order to build their cannons. But even before they were stripped of their noble positions, the Shibas were treated like they were lower than the poorest of the lower aristocracy. Doesn't it bother you that the Shiba family allowed that?
Well, it's easy to see based on the value of their house that the Shiba family is as good as any of the nobles. So they probably thought that was enough. But what concerns me is that you're arrogant enough to call certain aristocrats poor.
I have no intention of intruding upon the internal affairs of another family. I understand the stipulations you've made, but I believe there has never been a precedent for the Reo giving his blessing to anyone.
That seems likely. Even if the Reo could convey the general gist of his will to the inhabitants of the Reo Q, it isn't likely that he'd consent to anything. Well, I suppose it is more appropriate to say that he cannot convey his blessing.
I have no idea what you're trying to say. What are you scheming, Tokinada?
But that era is over. Eventually, there will come a new age, when we receive the Reo's blessing, and the Seirete, we 5 great noble clans, will each separately reign over the 3 realms. That's all I'm discussing.
Before I hear the particulars of this discussion, I have a question. Didn't you yourself say that the Reo wouldn't give his blessing for this? Then why are you speaking as though your proposal is a sure thing?
Yes, that's easy. Because the next Soul King will have free will.
I see. So that's why you invited me instead of Yushiro.
You saw it, didn't you, Yoruichi Shihoin? The Reo Ichigo Kurosaki struck down, and the state he was in even before he was killed. But I can see that you don't know what that was. Yes, you don't know what the Reo was from the start. But Kisuke Urahara should be aware. Several hundred years ago, the Soul Society. There was once a blind young man from Rukongai who sought a meeting with Central 46. Several minutes after the man had been led away by the aristocrat who had killed his own wife, that same aristocrat called out to the guards with a bright smile. Hey you, I have a job for you. A resident of Rukongai tried to raise his hand to me. Get him out of here, quickly. The command gave the guards an eerie feeling, but they obediently obeyed. They understood it was better to knock down the Rukongai resident than it was to go against a noble. Smiles spilled across the guards' faces as they raised their staves above the blind young man's head. This time, there was no one to stop them.
What? What are the guards doing?
Though his eyes could not see, he was able to track what was happening based on sounds and the currents of the air.
One of the guards continued to raise his stave, but it was against his partner.
Why are you... Don't you dare talk back, you filthy commoner!
Through coarse breathing, the guard apparently didn't know he was beating his own partner. He thought he was beating Tosen. The guard pulled his unconscious partner off the road, and Tosen listened to the sounds of them growing distant, lost in confusion.
I switched the water in their canteens with alcohol. I believe their actions will be put down as a fight while drinking on the job. That aristocrat will suspect something, but we just need to make him think he's jumping at shadows.
Who are you? Are you a Soul Reaper too?
Yes, that is exactly what I am. I'm just a fragment of the world that in your despair you burn with hatred for. Allow me. Would you surrender your hatred to me for a while?
Though Tosen was dubious, the sound of the man's voice convinced him that the stranger already had a firm grasp on Tosen's heart. An overwhelming power radiated from the man. He offered Tosen a hand.
My name is Sousuke Aizen. At present, I am still but a humble Soul Reaper.